we're just kind of getting started. There's lots more music to come, but these were just few of those honey-dipped melodies of Lata Mangeshkar. Now, Archie, you've been following classical music as well as film music as well. What do you think separates Lata Mangeshkar from the rest?
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question, but I think Honey-Dipped Melody was a good title for this medley because, this is something which stands out every time we hear Lata Mangeshkar sing. I mean, if you ask anybody what comes to your mind when you hear Lata Mangeshkar's voice, classical prowess, technical virtuosity, Surilapan, ability to enunciate on certain words, pronunciation skills, all that is there. But the thing that really strikes us the first is this mithas of her voice. Everybody says that kya meetha hai unka awaaz. That is so. This medley is, of course, this is about 1/10 of the size of the songs that we actually had in mind at shortlisted. 90% of our songs are filled with mithas. So that's the first thing that comes and hits us. So yes. So
and since we have a dear friend of Gulzar, and there was at least 2 songs that I can straight away see, starting with Mora Gora Ang Laile, which was of course written by Gulzar. So any interesting stories or anecdotes about that song?
I'll go back a few years. Before that, Jago Mohan Pyare. What is it? This is an ode to the independent India, where the village is moving to the cities. Raj Kapoor has come to a city, but the city is trying to trap him in the negative side. But somewhere the film carries that particular message that if you see this particular song, there's a kid, Daisy Irani. So Raj Kapoor actually is running away from the antisocial elements who are behind him, and he thinks that he will get caught for the events of the last night. But this kid asks him, जब तुमने कुछ गलत किया ही नहीं तो डरते क्यों? And then they show Rabindranath Tagore, Vivekanand, and the new age leaders that India has to take them as mentors, and the rural India, they have to come forward. And then we have Jago Mohan Pyare. So this song is a song of awakening of the new India. It is not a love song or it is not a prayer. If you see that song in that context, so Lata Mangeshkar became that voice of awakening, and Lata Mangeshkar became the voice of India.
Yes, indeed, and that was also the last time. आखिरी बार आपने नरगिस को आर के प्रोडक्शन में देखा उस गाने में जागो मोहन प्यारे.
There's this very specific characteristics of Lata Mangeshkar that she carried, the way she carried herself in the industry, and never let anyone take granted for her, for being a female, for being a weak female. Even during the earlier years, there was a major singer star who misbehaved with her, and he had to run away from the film industry within a week, and he was totally lost after that, who was a singing star at that time in the early 50s. So Lata always maintained about her pride, about the dignity and self-respect. She never compromised on that characteristic, never ever. And that's what made her somewhat different from others, from an industry where there's a cutthroat competition, where there's a lot of compromise. Lata became the face of dignity. And the way she carried the industry, it actually raised the stature of the industry. So I go back a few years when Lata had a major fight with S.D. Burman over a particular recording. She couldn't make it. There was some kind of they developed a mistrust, and Lata stopped working for S.D. Burman. They both stopped working, they stopped caring for each other. This was 1958, film was Sitaron Se Aage. So 58, 59, 60, they didn't work together for any film. And in those days you can see somewhere Suman Kalyanpur coming up as a singer, as an alternative, or Geeta Dutt as an alternative in SDB films, or even Asha Bhosle, but no Lata Mangeshkar. But what happened was, R.D. Burman got his first film, that is Bhoot Bangla. And since R.D. Chote Nawab. And since R.D. Burman was working from a very young age with S.D. Burman and used to be his assistant during Pyasa and earlier years, so Lata Mangeshkar had a very, had developed a fondness for him, and she could not say no for recording his first song, for Pancham. That song was Ghar Aja Gir Aaye Badra Videsiya. So Pancham invited Lata ji to his home to record. And when she reached there, Dada Burman was there, but they were not in speaking terms. So Dada Burman was completely ignoring her. Somewhere Pancham and Lata helped breaking the ice in between them, which was actually, they were not working together for 3 years, almost 2.5 years. And on that day when Pancham's first song recorded, and it was recorded by Lata Mangeshkar, the S.D. Burman and Lata Mangeshkar patched up on the stairs of R.D. Burman's home, S.D. Burman's home, and on that day the first song that they recorded after that was Mora Gora Anglaili. That was recorded in sometime in late 1960s. So that's how that became the first song of Gulzar also. Gulzar, because Shailendra was working on Bandini, but there was some issue with the S.D. Burman, so S.D. Burman, Shailendra walked off for that particular song, and Gulzar was introduced by R.D. Burman. So because R.D. Burman, Gulzar was a friend of R.D. Burman, and Gulzar actually was in the same circle because he hailed from that Bimal Roy school, and even Sachanda was a major part of that particular school. So Gulzar came in and Mora Gora Anglaili was born. It was there's a long story which we'll need some other day because it will take a lot of time. But maybe because there's so much to talk. When we sat together to discuss the scope for this, we had almost about 10 hours of content. So the most difficult aspect for us was to reduce it to 2.5 and 3 hours. So we have a lot to talk, and maybe some other day, but maybe we can talk more about Lata.
Yeah, quickly, Doc, any favorites from what we just played, and any particular reason you like that song?
My obvious choice would be Baharo Mera Jeevan Bhi Samaro, because it's a very early example of course, Mr. Khayyam's masterly composition speaks for itself, but it's a very early example of 3 major talents from the world of Indian classical music coming together to play for that song, which is Ustad Rais Khan on sitar, Hari Prasad Chaurasia on flute, and Shiv Kumar Sharma on santoor. But the way the song has been arranged, without any one person interfering with the playing of the other, and of course giving maximum projection to Lataji's voice. So that is really a song for the ages. Thanks.
Alright, already बहुत सारे गाने हैं. There are many more songs for the ages. So now we're just trying to, kind of give some kind of a category or shape to the program, to the songs. So we have a category called Timeless Classics, which kind of speaks for itself, which needs no introduction. And of course, there are many, many timeless classics. I think the word timeless is kind of an understatement for these songs. I mean, they are beyond timeless, if at all there is such a thing. Interestingly, we've heard these songs because we've been editing these videos for quite some time now. So we must have heard it probably 20 or 30 times in the last, 10, 15 days or so. And even now, while listening to them, it gives you goosebumps. There's nothing like we've had enough of this. Still every time. In fact, I kind of envy you all because you all are watching it on the big screen here and we are watching it on the small screen. So I'm just trying to imagine how it must be feeling like to watch Aja Re Pardesi, or all these lovely beautiful songs. So let's start with Aayega Aane Wala. We put them in timeless because, well, as I said, many of those songs they could go in either category. We just put them in a category for just to make things easier. So some interesting story.
So I have already told about that Khemchand Prakash story, but if we speak of the earlier years of Lata Mangeshkar, the foundation years of Lata Mangeshkar, she had three main mentors. One was Ghulam Haidar, one was Anil Biswas, and one was Khemchand Prakash. And somehow Lata Mangeshkar became the key driver to their success afterwards. And you can see, if you have seen the previous clip closely, you would find Madhubala, Nutan, Vaijanti Mala, Meena Kumari, Nargis, each and every big name of those days. So those heroines used to have that first term in the contract that my song has to be sung by Lata Mangeshkar. Nargis, Madhubala, these heroines, when they used to sign the contract, so this was the term. And somehow we actually criticized Lata Mangeshkar for not giving opportunity to many other contemporary artists, but that is not true. It was not her fault. We'll discuss that later, but at this moment I would like to discuss a very technical point, that how skilled she was, the technical prowess, like the song Aayega Aane Wala. So she learned, she was an excellent learner. So she learned quickly how to change the tonal quality, because she started like Noor Jahan. If you have heard the earlier songs like Chandare Jare Jare, that Punjabi accent is there in those songs, and but later on she developed her own trademark of voice, that honey voice that we call. And Anil Biswas was the one who actually nurtured that particular voice. Khemchand Prakash, if you remember this song Aayega Aane Wala, so it's a haunting song. It's a picturized on a ghost. So he taught her how to handle the mic, the technicalities of mic. So Lata was one of the excellent users of mic. Where to stand, how much to exert for speaking, for rendering a particular song. And if you see, you won't find any other singer in parallel who actually delivers the exact emotion that scene requires. Exact emotions, not overdoing it or not underdoing it. And that somehow helps actresses and heroines so much, because probably their work was cut out just because Lata has delivered the song on screen already. So a lot of people, I think Pula Deshpande once had made a comment that people call Lata Mangeshkar a playback singer. They should call all those heroines as playback actresses. This is the Pula Deshpande's comment. So that is what Lata was, the first anchor to them, because she already had emoted what was there in the song. She had already connected to the audience. So what was left for the heroines was just a little bit of emotions, or giving some faces to those emotions. And if you see, there is one Lata Mangeshkar, but there are hundreds and thousands of heroines. You must have seen a song in this clip, wo bhuli dastan wo fir yaad aa gayi. So there's a heroine in that, Anita Guha. Not many people remember her today, but she will be remembered because Lata Mangeshkar had sung an immortal song for her, and she will not be forgotten for that song for Lata Mangeshkar, not for her acting skills. So most of the heroines, they were not great actors, they were not great actresses, but they got Lata Mangeshkar singing for them. That made them great.
And of course,
On
Santosh Mata.
a lighter note, I would like to add the best acting in that came from Pran.
Yeah.
You know? the way he uses his eyes, I mean, that's like a masterclass in acting. But moving ahead, Doc, any of your favorites and why from the clips that we just played?
No, just a very small, you might say, technical point with reference to Ajare Pardesi. Mr. Salil Chaudhary has gone on record to explain why he used a seventh chord, specifically G7. There are knowledgeables in the audience here who, of course, will understand. Mr. Atul is here. So, this chord is seldom used as a base for a song because it should lead into the major or the minor of a subsequent related note to achieve in the mind of the listener a feeling of completeness. This is best illustrated with examples, but I'm just briefly going to tell you that Ajare Pardesi, he used the seventh chord because in his own subtle way he wanted the listener also to feel the incompleteness of the heroine as far as her pining or her love was concerned. So these are these subtle ways in which even music directors and composers enforce emotions and they manipulate you without even you yourself realizing why you felt the way you did. And just a side note on Ajare Pardesi.
Doc, any specific part where the G7 comes in?
Where the antara ends, she pauses and you can actually hear the G7 notes on vibraphone, and then she sings exactly the same notes as Ajare Pardesi.
Since the song was being sung by a ghost, which is a kind of an incomplete personality, so Salilda conceived that as an incomplete seventh note because it was sung by a ghost, not by a human.
Right. And one thing I forgot to tell you all, that all the stories and anecdotes that you all hear from them, they've heard it directly from the horse's mouth, so to say. We mostly must have read it on Wikipedia or Filmfare or Mayapuri or whatever, one of those kind of magazines. But when Doc says that this is what Salilda said, he actually met Salilda and asked him about that particular song. It's not from just hearsay or whatever.